this is Riding with RIDI. This video is the first in a brand new series focusing on Equestrian Money Diaries. We're going to be looking at the true costs of owning a horse in the UK in 2024. If you're not familiar with Equestrian Money Diaries, it was a project that I set up a few years ago now, and the reason I set it up was I didn't feel like there was enough up-to-date, clear or detailed financial information about the cost of really owning horses, and I felt like people like myself and people who want to become horse owners, who want to do it properly, didn't have the information to do it. So I set up what is essentially an anonymous Google form where people can fill in all of the different costs and we can share them and democratize access to that data. Since I set up the project, there have been thousands of entries from all over the world, and I've shared them in lots of different places, on blogs, on TikToks, Facebook groups, and I haven't yet found a good way to share all of that data, and I'm hoping that this series will be a good way to do that. Today specifically, we're looking, as I said, at diaries that were submitted in 2024 for the UK only. I'm going to share a link to the Google form in the comments or in the description, so if you want to submit a diary of your own, you can do so. It's completely anonymous. Only the information that you share is seen by me, and it's only used for the purpose of, I guess, sharing the data. It doesn't matter if you ride a riding school, part loan, share, full loan, own a horse, own multiple horses, it's all valid data. And I'm hoping that for upcoming episodes we can share costs in the US, costs in Europe, costs in insert place, and different costs for different things, as well as some interesting diaries for things like competition horses. In terms of today's video, I'm going to take you through the average costs for all of the individual parts, so feed, bedding, farriery, livery, etc. I'm then going to share some of the highest costing diaries and some of the cheapest diaries, and then look at some of the other parts of the survey, so facilities that people had, etc. In terms of methodology, there are 237 diaries that were submitted in 2024, so that's the data set we're looking at. There are thousands from 2022 and 3, but it takes a really long time to go through the data, and I'll admit it felt like too big of a task for this video, but if you really like this stuff, then I will spend the time going through all of the data. So of the diaries that we're going to look at, 46% of them owned a horse, 32% owned multiple horses, 8% part loaned, 5% full loaned, and 1.4% rode at a riding school. Now let's dive into the average costs. On average, the total cost being spent per month for a horse in the UK in 2024 was £888.41. That broke down to around £278 a month for livery or board, £120 a month for feed. Now I must say, I think that's been skewed by some very expensive diaries. I actually think that maybe, would it be the median? The kind of average of the average would be around £70 for feed, just a note. Bedding, £68 a month. Farriery, £79 a month. Rider insurance, £9 a month. Horse insurance, £91 a month. And here's the really interesting bit, the additional costs, so that's things like physio, dentistry, veterinary, vaccinations, lessons, competitions, travel, petrol, lorry, etc. £242 a month. So if we actually look at where the biggest costs are coming from, livery of course is one of the biggest parts of that lump, but actually it's the additional costs, all those extra bits and pieces, that are really ramping up the average monthly cost. And then after that, horse insurance and feed are kind of the next biggest expenses for owners. So one of the most expensive diaries that was submitted in 2024 is this one, and I'm going to share it with you in full. So they were in West Sussex, and they had multiple horses that they kept at home. They had no livery cost, but they had an indoor school, an outdoor school, year-round turnout, lorry parking, hot wash area, solarium, lunge pen, a horse walker, close to local competitions, and great hacking. They spent £280 a month on feed, £800 a month on shavings. They had one horse or a couple of horses who were barefoot, and some who had a full set of shoes. I cannot see the price for that on here on these notes, but I'll add it on screen if I find it later. No insurance. They spend £400 a month filling up the lorry. They spend £500 every 3 months on the chiropractor. They spend £1,000 every month on shows. £320 every 6 months on vaccinations. Supplements £40 a month. and they spend £1,000 on haylage every month, and that averages out at around £4,480 a month. There was also an incredibly expensive diary of somebody who owned 26 horses, but it felt so far away from all of the averages that I haven't included it here. If you really want to hear that diary, let me know in the comments and I'll make a video on that specifically. One of the least expensive diaries was somebody in Shropshire who had multiple horses that they keep at home. They had year-round turnout lorry parking close to local competitions. They spend approximately £50 on hard feed a month and £20 on hay a month, averaged over the year. They have straw delivered from a local farmer at £45 for a large rectangular bale, and the bale will usually last 2 months. They have one full set with road nails, and the other is just a trim, £115 every 7 weeks. They don't spend anything additional at the moment because they're trying to save money, apart from £5 for a bag of treats. And they said, keeping the girls at home is lovely, but it comes with land management challenges, mainly around time. We have a number of muck heap bays and we rot down our muck and spread it back onto the fields. We are fortunate enough to have a small tractor that allows for this. Hay has previously been made at my in-laws for around 1 to 2 per small bale, but unfortunately they're selling the property and we don't have enough land at home to make hay on. So this is going to be a big increase in the cost in the coming years. Including some spend on general maintenance items, electric, fencing, etc., this probably costs me around £200 a month at the moment. It sounds great, especially having had one on full livery at £600 a month previously. But we've had some big investment up front: stables, tractor, redoing fencing to our property, energizer, just to name a few. Financials aside, being at home can be a bit frustrating or lonely. Unless there are people nearby to ride with, you can feel a bit isolated. Not having a school can also be a problem. My mare is a bit feisty in the winter months and I miss the safety of a menage. So in total, excluding what they call their land management costs, because technically this doesn't count towards what we'd normally say are costs, and that's kind of up to you, I guess, to decide. It was £140 a month, so it feels like hardly anything, but when you hear what they are spending their money on, it sort of actually makes it higher than the average. Oh no, it doesn't. I tell a lie. But it makes it almost the same as having the average livery cost of £278. There's another one that I wanted to share with you. So this is somebody who's in Lancashire. They own a horse on DIY, shared yards with friends and 4 horses, which is £90 a month. They have an outdoor school, year-round turnout, lunge pen and great hacking. They spend £50 a month on feed, £35 a month on straw. They have a horse who's barefoot, and it costs them £20 every time they get it done. And they also have additional costs of £198 for vet fees for teeth and jabs, including sedation. So that's an idea of some of the actual monetary costs. Now I want to take you through a few of the other parts of the survey in terms of facilities and how people spend their money when it comes to bedding and farriery, etc. This year, in terms of yard facilities, 86.4% who took the survey have lorry parking, 79.9% have an outdoor school, 76.6% have great hacking, 24.5% have an indoor school, 79.9% have year-round turnout, 30% have a hot wash area, 26% have a lunge pen, 20% have a horse walker, and 57.5% are close to local competitions, which I haven't defined by any mileage or whatever, it's just whatever the owner thinks feels close to them. In terms of bedding, 48% keep their horse on shavings, 30% keep their horse on straw, 15% keep their horse on wood-based bedding like pellets, 2% are on a paper-based bedding, 26% have rubber matting, and 20% have a horse living out all year round. And on the rubber matting, often you saw it ticked with something else, so they might have rubber matting plus straw, rubber matting plus shavings. In terms of farriery, 45% were barefoot, which is actually higher than I expected. And I'm actually thinking about going back, crunching the numbers for 2023 and then comparing them to 2024, because I think possibly the number of horses barefoot has gone up, because I think it's become a little more mainstream, maybe some more information, feels like it's gone up. I'd also be really interested to compare the costs. Let me know if you'd be interested. Maybe I can sit down and crunch the numbers. But 19% have front shoes, 38% have a full set, 8% have a full set and studs, and 5% have special shoes. And then in terms of insurance, 59% have insurance, 40% don't, or 41%, and 41% have rider insurance. Now, to finish this video, I wanted to share with you a couple of data points from the National Equine Welfare Charity Survey. The survey itself was taken by around 6,000 people, and it had many elements, so I will link it out in the description so you can read the whole thing if you want to. But this is a few of the main bits. So you can see that the majority of people here who took the survey have DIY livery, followed by part livery and full livery, so quite similar to the much smaller data set that I was working with. This chart is super interesting because it looks at whether or not charges have increased for professional services. So the blue is where charges have increased. So you can see veterinary, farriery, dental, insurance provider, and equine event and memberships have all gone up based on the survey data itself. But what is interesting is then whether or not people have considered making changes to how they work with equine professionals. So we've seen a few people have already done it or are considering it, but most are actually not considering changing things like vaccinations or times between visits or cancelling veterinary appointments, for example. And here you've got a few real quotes of people actually explaining why or why not they are making changes. So, for example, I won't compromise on his care, would rather go without myself than not have him up to date with everything that he needs. And then just looking ahead to the future, the things that people were most concerned about in terms of cost rising was veterinary care and emergency care, followed by sufficient feed or forage for their horses. And finally, just a deep dive on owners reporting increases in charges for equine events and memberships, which ties into a video I did a couple of weeks ago about why riders are currently choosing to give up competition or give up horses altogether. Now, this report had so many amazing other stats around insurance and giving up insurance, for example, so I'll link out to it in the description if you want to deep dive and read it all yourself. They also did another survey which spoke to equine charities and the effect of the cost of living was having on them as well. So really interesting times that we're in. I am actually now very curious to go and compare the results that we have so far for 2024 to the results that we had for 2023 and see if there were big changes. I appreciate the data set I'm working with is much smaller than that survey, but interesting. So as I said, let me know in the comments if you like this video. I'm sure I'll be able to tell if it has good views or not, but maybe we can do this quarterly and kind of check in on the costs and see if they've changed. I also have enough data, I think, to do this for the US and for Europe, but it may be that I have to supplement some of the data with 2023 data to make sure we have a big enough data set. So let me know if you'd be interested and what area. And if you want to take part in Equestrian Money Diaries, then you can fill in the form below. Let me know what you think as always, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye for now.